What's up, y'all? And as y'all can see, this video is about the Southwest, which was probably of the more active divisions when you really look at what happened in the offseason. Firstly, we're going to start off with the Dallas Mavericks, who, of course, get off Josh Green. They lose Tim Hardaway Jr. He gets traded to Detroit. Derrick Jones Jr. signs to LA, and then they bring in, obviously, Klay Thompson, Najee Marshall, Quentin Grimes, kind of as their main guys. And the main thing I look at is, and it just sucks with how tough the West is and just how the NBA is right now with the overall amount of talent. It's hard for me to look at a team that isn't distinguishedly like the best team in their conference, like the Celtics, well, for example, obviously, and be like, there's another run in there. You feel me? The Mavs had a great season. I personally picked them to make the finals at the beginning of the playoffs. Well, to be more realistic, I picked them to make the finals after it was announced Kawhi was out for the first round. So I saw the vision, but I don't see the vision again, if that makes sense. Last year, not that it was their year, not that they can't make it back, but I feel like that was their best opportunity. And now in a situation where, Quentin Grimes, I feel like was pretty bad in Detroit, if I remember correct. I would have to look at the exact stats, which I can pull up right now. Najee Marshall is actually a great pickup. And Klay Thompson signing is weird because it's a very good player you're getting in Klay. And once again, the gravity he brings will be less people to help off of any like pick and roll actions with Luka or Kyrie. But when you look at that starting lineup, it's last season Derrick Jones Jr. is taking the Shea assignment. He's taking the Paul George assignment. He's taking the, other basically any person point guard through small forward, especially come playoff time. That's the Derrick Jones Jr. assignment. And I kind of look at this team next year, assuming that Klay's just sliding into the starting lineup. So it's Luka, Kyrie, Klay, PJ Washington, and then either Gafford or Derek Lively, whichever one they choose to start next season. And I don't know who's taking those matchups come playoff time, because Klay is not where the idea of Klay being washed is heavily overstated. Klay is still a 38% three-point shooter. He's still Klay Thompson. He's still a respected shooter, even though he's a little more inconsistent. But defensively is where he's really taking a hit. And that's what I question, is who is taking these assignments come playoff time. I don't feel comfortable with Klay guarding superstars. I don't feel comfortable with PJ Washington. Kyrie's a little too small. Luka obviously isn't going to bring that effort offensively. And you can't have Derek Lively guard that team's guards, or it's not really an option. So and once again, when Najee Marshall or Quentin Grimes come in, the minutes they're playing very well, I think they are taking those assignments, which I think is fine. But in your starting lineup, I feel like it's guaranteed that that's your starting five. I doubt Klay is looking to come to the Mavericks and change teams just to come off the bench. And you obviously can't bench Luka or Kyrie, and it just feels weird. So unless maybe PJ Washington comes off the bench come playoff time, maybe Najee Marshall takes that spot, maybe he's getting the defensive assignments, but it feels like such a weird move where you're getting a good player, but I don't love the fit at all defensively. Offensively, it's fine. Next up, we got the Pelicans, which is really just kind of a weird situation where you trade for DeJounte Murray, who can be your legitimate point guard, and I love that move for them, because not only what DeJounte can, in concept, bring on defense. I know he wasn't great defensively in Atlanta, but, he's shown to be a positive defender in San Antonio all these years, and it's kind of a culture thing, too, where nobody's defending in Atlanta, so it makes him look worse, as well as probably his less effort there. But in the idea of a DeJounte trade, I feel like before the trade, it would be Brandon Ingram for DeJounte, if that is the move they make. But you get him for Larry Nance, Dyson Daniels, and was it 2 seconds? Was it a first? It was 2 firsts, maybe. I don't remember the exact package. But in player value, you don't lose a lot. But it leaves you in a tough position where you have 6 guys who feel like legitimate starters, but none of them can play center, at least full time. Like, maybe you can get some weird Zion center minutes, but Zion's not going to start at center. And obviously he's not going to play a bulk of his minutes at center. And when you look at the centers right now, on your roster, you have Yves Missy, rookie, still kind of raw. I don't know what you really expect. And you have Daniel Tice, who ideally isn't your starting center, but once again, you do want that spacing in this starting lineup, because Brandon Ingram is not a heavy three-point shooter. DeJounte Murray, not a heavy three-point shooter. Zion obviously doesn't shoot threes. And either way, I still question what the starting lineup looks like, assuming that there's no big move. I mean, I know there's some Lauri Markkanen rumors, but is he your full-time 5 if you get him? I mean, I guess you can just kind of run some weird lineups, but like those games against Philly, those games against the Nuggets, games against the Lakers, it's like, what is, with or without a potential Lauri Markkanen trade, what does that look like? And in a Lauri Markkanen trade, you want to give up Ingram, but the Jazz don't want Brandon Ingram. So just assuming there's no trade, because I mean, obviously you never know, things go crazy in the NBA, but I don't know what trade there is out there. I just question who starts, because I feel like DeJounte has to start. Ingram's gonna start. Zion's gonna start. I mean, Trey Murphy is probably the odd man out, where he's definitely off the bench, but then it's like CJ, I think you like the fit there with him and DeJounte, but at the same time, Herb Jones just carried your defense to a top 10 defense while having nobody else that you would consider a positive defender. So it's like, is CJ McCollum your 6 man now? Their roster is just so weird, but I feel like the ceiling of it is really high if they could just somehow move Brandon Ingram to get a center. Obviously, Jared Allen's not getting moved anymore. Supposedly, that's what they're saying. Kenny Atchison's a big fan of him, so he's not getting moved out of Cleveland, so there's no way to get him. Like, I don't know where they pivot from here to get a center, but it's a really weird fit, but they definitely can make some shit shake if they just figure something out. It's one move away from being like borderline real contender. There's not too much to talk about the Memphis Grizzlies this year. They're just hoping for help. I mean, Jaren missed a decent amount of games last year. Desmond Bane, they shut him down at the end of the season. Ja obviously played, 10 games. Brandon Clark was hurt, I'm aware of. I don't know what his status is going into next season. As well as, Marcus Smart has some injuries. Basically, everybody had injuries. You were running Trey Jemison as your starting center for some of the season. Jacob Gilyard was getting real minutes. And no disrespect to Jacob Gilyard, but any player under like 5'10", and not being listed under 5'10", because some 6-foot point guards people think are legitimately 5'10", getting real NBA PT is kind of insane in the modern era. But hey, respect to Jacob Gilyard though. I sure can't getting real PT. I'm pretty sure he started a couple games, but it's just going into next season, you're just basically looking to run it back and be healthy, and that's really all there is to say for him. You draft Zach Edey at 9. A lot of people thought that was a reach, and I don't know how I feel about it, because he has looked okay in summer league so far, but I feel like ideally you want a more mobile center. He's going to handle the rebounding fine. Defensively, he should be okay under the rim. Obviously on switches it'll be questionable, but that's most centers. But I just feel like you want a center you're more comfortable with, and I would like to think you're not trying to run Jaren at the 5. Honestly, I do not like Jaren at the 5. When you talk about FIBA, last year, 2 years ago, when Team USA lost, didn't even medal, not that is Jaren's fault, but that FIBA team was running Jaren mainly at the 5, and the only real center they had, Walker Kessler, and that's kind of why. It's because Jaren Jackson Jr. is not a center. He cannot be a full-time center. So I feel like they still ideally are looking to fill that hole. Not that Zach Edey can't play, but I don't see him as a starter. And it's not really much else they've done this offseason outside of the draft. I mean, they're supposed to re-sign Luke Kennard. Like, they declined his option to re-sign him. That was like one of the first things they did in the offseason. He still has not been re-signed. I don't know what's going on there, but not too much to talk about the Memphis Grizzlies, though. They're coming back with a vengeance. That's all there is to say. The Houston Rockets not only ended last season great, which was without Sengun, which I don't think they're looking to move on from Sengun or anything, even though him and Jalen Green, they have not extended either of them yet. They're going to wait. It seems like they're waiting for them to hit the restricted free agency to actually, get the best value out of them instead of just trying to max them out immediately, which isn't a bad move. But I do... Not that I don't want to say I do question that they have too much talent, but I'm really curious about what this rotation looks like next year, because you have so many high-level NBA players, or not even really high-level, but a whole bunch of guys who can go get 20 minutes somewhere, but they might not give them there. Obviously, your starting 5 probably stays the same, where it's Van Vliet, Jalen Green, Dillon Brooks, Jabari, and then Sengun. But now you're bringing in Steven Adams, who I assume will still be rotational. I mean, I know he's coming off an injury, but I would think you bring him in to actually be like a more physical, defensive, rebounding type of center compared to Sengun, who's a little more finesse-based. and a little more offensive oriented. I mean, Tari Eason's going to be back. He barely played last season with injury. You still have Cam Whitmore. You bring in Reed Sheppard, which is, I think, a great fit, but it's like Reed Sheppard feels like a guy who on some teams could probably go get 20, 25 minutes a night. And I don't know if he's in your rotation to start the season, even though he's been lighting up Summer League. You have Amen Thompson, same thing, where I expect Amen to be in the rotation, but it's like he could probably go get 20-some minutes somewhere, even though his fit's a little more questionable being a guard that can't really shoot. Not even can't really, he can't shoot. Thompson twins, so that's definitely not their strong point. As well as you just have other just like, functional role players. AJ Griffin's there. I mean, I know he wasn't good last season, but he had a really good rookie season. So that gives you hope that maybe he can be rotational. Aaron Holiday can play some minutes. You're just a really deep team in a West, and they did a great job getting those Phoenix picks that can hold the Suns hostage, because they definitely have enough pieces to go do a KD trade. It doesn't even have to be a KD trade, even though that's, I think, what the goal would be. They just have the assets to get a star, and I don't know when they pull the trigger on it, because I don't like when teams force the timeline, but at the same time, when you have this much depth and all the draft capital you have in a team like this, I feel like the window isn't now, but you can make it sooner than later. And I'm really interested to see what they do with that. And last but probably not least in this division comes the San Antonio Spurs, who have really had an offseason. You get your guy Stefan Cassell at number 4. You also have 8, which you get Rob Dillingham, but I guess you don't really want Rob Dillingham, and you turn basically a good pick that you didn't want to future draft capital, which can be either used to get a star or maybe, deeper down when Wemby's on a max, when Stefan Cassell's getting paid, when Devin Vassell, I'm pretty sure he already get paid. I guess Jeremy Sohan when he gets a little bit of bag. You have young guys still coming in, so you're not just stuck like some of these modern teams are with the second apron, where you paid all your guys and now you don't have anybody because you're already good. You can't get draft picks. Not that the Timberwolves will be bad by then, but you get what I'm saying. And you do a good job bringing in vets. Chris Paul, Harrison Barnes, those are 2 win-now players. And you look at the West and how deep it is. Going into the offseason, I thought even no matter what steps Wemby took, the chances are the Spurs would not be like a play-in team just because of how deep it is. But I look at their roster right now, and I think they can be very competitive. They can go be a 40-win team, maybe 45 if Wemby just takes a huge jump and he's I don't want to project too much, but if he's a 25-11 guy this year, still about 3-ish blocks, 4-ish assists. It's hard to look at the NBA and all the talent, how good teams are, and how somebody's just gonna have to fall out. And I feel like it has to be the Spurs, but I don't see how it would be the Spurs.